President Biden is set to deliver two major speeches before he leaves office. Two people familiar with the plans exclusively tell NBC News the first speech will focus on foreign policy. It will take place when the president returns from his final trip abroad, a trip to Italy, on January 12th. Now, the second speech will be a farewell address to the country. In those remarks, he's expected to share a message about the future and reflect on his decades in public office.
Are we giving Ukraine a couple of $1 billion before Joe Biden leaves office? Is this really what we're doing here? I know it sounds like a joke, but we're kind of at a point where it's not even funny anymore, because many people say that President Joe Biden is just throwing off the incoming administration with all these last minute decisions that will alter how the Trump administration will have to deal with certain policies. More on that later. I also discussed today the openness of some lawmakers to work with Donald Trump. One of these lawmakers is Democratic Senator John Fetterman, a guy who says that he's actually willing to work with Republican Party and President Trump. But let's go ahead and start off with the president and his shocking announcement regarding Greenland. And guys, I just want to thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. Let's get started.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
Donald Trump posted an interesting video on X. By the way, join us over on X. We're growing our X community, our Twitter community. I'll leave a link for you guys to join me in the description down below this video. But Donald Trump posted an interesting video on X, one that's already creating a lot of interest from people within Greenland itself. So here's a video that the president-elect shared on Truth Social. Check this out.
So like, if you could tell Trump anything, what would it be?
Buy us.
Buy Greenland?
Buy Greenland.
Why do you want Trump to buy Greenland?
Because we don't want to be colonized by Danish government anymore. We get ripped every year about our minerals from Greenland. We are the richest nation in the world, and we don't get to use it. Denmark's using us too much.
Do you like America?
I love America, but people are too fat over there.
And the younger Trump also got to meet some of the locals over there. In a photo, Trump Jr. says that Greenland loves America and Trump. Incredible people with an equally awesome reception. They just want to be able to utilize some of the incredible resources that they have and allow themselves, their country, and their kids to flourish. Now, we're not able to speak for the entire country, but Greenlandic Prime Minister Mute Ege, he may be siding with President Trump here, at least to a point. So according to him, the country needs to be independent from Denmark, adding that it's now time to take the next step for our country. Like other countries in the world, we must work to remove the obstacles to cooperation, which we can describe as the shackles of the colonial era, and move on. And here's the best part. He's talking about cooperation with other countries, meaning trade relations as well, and that these can't take place solely through Denmark, which may prove that Greenland as a country is in favor of Trump's plan, because that would give them more leverage to work with other allied nations. Which brings me right back here at home, where Senator John Fetterman is talking about this crazy idea, an idea that's just so crazy that it actually makes sense.
There's a lot of talk about Greenland, for example. And I know there's a lot of freakouts, and of course I would never support taking it by force. But I do think it's a responsible conversation if they were open to acquiring it, and whether just buying it outright. I mean, if anyone think that's bonkers, it's like, well, remember the Louisiana Purchase? Oh, I think Alaska was a great deal too. $50 million, I think it was. It was referred to as Seward's Folly, and now that was Alaska now. So I mean, open to having all kinds of conversations as well. And now I don't think it's not helpful to freak out, but some things might work out, some may not, but that's part of ongoing dialogue. But he hasn't even taken office in 2 weeks. And, we really need to pace ourselves if we're going to freak out over every last tweet or every last conversation or press conference. but
That's good. That's a good one, John. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, we are here to work together.
Yeah.
And some things you can agree or disagree, but I think that's how DC works.
And you all have a great rapport. We saw it last time when you came on Common Ground. Do you think the 119th Congress is going to be more of trying to find that?
I hope so, and I hope the two of us can be a part of that. I mean, look, I think the people that elected us expect us, when we share a common goal with someone on the other side of the aisle, get in the room and figure it out. And there's a lot of things that we need to figure out for Americans, and so putting that first and figuring out how to work together to achieve that is essential.
And isn't that what government should be all about? To find their common ground and to work for the people of their country? Because John Fetterman, he's making a lot of sense here. I mean, he's sitting next to a Republican who's saying the same thing. It's time to work together for once. And Brett Baer also asked them about one of our top concerns. That would be the mass influx of illegal immigrants into the country, something that many Democrats don't really care about. In fact, they somehow support this sort of invasion of the country. Now, thankfully, John Fetterman, he's not like any of these Democratic leaders within our government.
Why is this important, and how confident are you about the Senate action here?
Yeah, so I think we've seen this litigated over the last 4 years, time and time again. And I think on November 5th, the American people delivered a verdict and said, we want secure borders. We want you to prioritize the safety and security of Americans over open border policies. And so this is a common sense piece of legislation, obviously named after a remarkable young woman that was taken from this earth way too soon. And I think that the bipartisan support that you saw in the House, I am really hopeful will carry on into the Senate. And we're already seeing good traction from our Senate colleagues interested in coming on board.
Senator Fetterman, there are Democrats, obviously, who spoke out against this today. One of them, Congressman Raskin. Take a listen.
Pick a crime, paste into it a template immigration law covering convicted criminals, and then require detention or deportation of certain persons merely accused of committing the crime or arrested for committing the crime. No due process required at all. This allows us to get up and demonize immigrants.
So what do you say to that? You've signed on to this bill.
Oh, well, I mean, I have a lot of enormous respect for my colleague in the House, but I just happen to disagree on this. And for me, just like my friend and colleague in the Senate, like, it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why, I don't know why, who wants to defend that, to allow them to remain in our nation through that? And now, if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of why we lost, in part.
Go ahead.
Brett, if you think about that, I mean, that's what he's saying, needing the 7 votes to be able to debate this bill. And I think the American people have already answered that question. They have said, we want you to find ways to have common sense bipartisan solutions to help us secure our border and keep our country and communities safe. And so I'm hopeful that our colleagues will come together and say, let's talk about this.
Well, I mean, I've been in this same chair, and I was arguing about a year ago saying that, you can be pro-immigration, but we need a secure border. And we have a serious issue here on the border, and we have to address that. And here we have now, we can be pro-immigration. And I really believe we should protect the dreamers. But I don't know why it's controversial that we need to deport any migrants here illegal that are engaging in kinds of criminal activity. I don't know why that's controversial to anybody.
That's exactly the point. It's all about common sense. The American people voted for mass deportation. Many within sanctuary cities were afraid to walk their streets because they don't want to be the next victim. Now, what's really controversial is this hesitation from Democrats like Raskin to protect the people of this country. And much like these Democrats within the House, President Joe Biden seems intent to basically making life worse works for Americans across the United States. This is a move that's being blasted by the incoming administration, mainly because he just banned offshore oil and gas drilling in most federal waters.
This is a disgraceful decision by the Biden administration. And I say the administration because we all know Joe Biden doesn't know what's going on. This isn't him. This is the radical left environmental extremists in his administration who don't care about what's in the best interest of the American people who just reelected President Trump with a resounding mandate to drill, baby, drill. This decision, the intent behind it is to exact political revenge on the American people and on President Trump, to try to slow down his administration and make it harder to implement the agenda that he campaigned on. But the good news is President Trump is going to get to work to day one. His administration will look at how we can rescind this radical order and expedite permits for drilling and for fracking to bring down the cost of living and energy in this country. That's what he campaigned on, and the American people can expect President Trump to deliver on that promise. He will not be deterred.
Well, and here's the thing, Caroline. Apparently, a lot of these lands, and we're talking about the East Coast, West Coast, down the Gulf Coast, and up around the Bering Sea, a lot of these areas, gas refiners have not really had any interest in developing anyway. But nonetheless, it's just symbolic. And I know it's going to be challenged in court. And I know that Republicans can change the law. But still, for him to do it in the last 2 weeks, rather than his first 2 weeks, it speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. It does. As I said, this is the Biden administration simply trying to throw a sucker punch at President Trump on Joe Biden's way out the door.
Right.
But this is going to be Joe Biden's legacy, not doing what's in the best interest for the American people to bring down the cost of living and inflation that has been robbing them of their hard-earned paychecks every week. No.
But if you ask them, hey, they would say that they've had our best interests at heart. Y'all buying that crap? It just kind of goes to show that they're willing to lie their way out of anything. Now, speaking of which, I did a previous video where I proved just that, with a top Democrat saying that they didn't lie about Biden's mental difficulties. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Can you believe that? Anyway, make sure you guys check that video out right after this one. As always, appreciate you guys hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.